Israel's our ally. Not a single word in your speech for the atrocities that were committed on October the 7th.
We should
not
cut
a single
off
word.
arms tomorrow.
Not a
Sparks flew on CNN this week as progressive host Emma Vigeland joined Abby Phillips' panel for a high-stakes debate with Scott Jennings. The exchange quickly shifted from a standard political discussion into a viral confrontation that everyone is talking about. Today, we're breaking down the key moments from that panel and analyzing the rhetoric on both sides. We are just a few people away from hitting our 1,000 subscriber milestone. If you appreciate deep dive political analysis, please hit that subscribe button and help us get there. Now, let's take a look at the footage.
A flurry of activity on foreign policy. In the last 2 days, Trump has hosted both Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at Mar-a-Lago. And he's had a high-stakes phone call with Russian President Vladimir Putin. It appears to be a last-ditch effort to shore up some foreign policy wins for 2025. But is it working? Well, it's been nearly 4 years since the start of that war between Russia and Ukraine, and it appears that Trump is continuing to take Putin at his word over Zelensky. Here's just the latest example. Putin's claim that Ukraine struck one of his homes.
It's another thing to attack his house. It's not the right time to do any of that, and can't do it. And I learned about it from President Putin today. I was very angry about it.
Ukraine calls that allegation a complete fabrication. But with Zelensky to the president's right, Trump claimed that Russia actually wants Ukraine to succeed. Now you can tell from Zelensky's face exactly how he felt about that comment. Watch.
They're going to be helping. Russia's going to be helping. Russia wants to see Ukraine succeed. Once, it sounds a little strange, but I was explaining to the president, President Putin was very generous in his feeling toward Ukraine succeeding, including supplying energy, electricity, and other things at very low prices.
I guess the question I have coming out of this is, what's the strategy? Is there any strategy at all here? Or is Trump just getting on the phone with Putin, listening to what he says, and then regurgitating everything that Putin says to him?
It feels like this is held together with Scotch tape and Elmer's glue at this point, because the most important person that you need at that table, Putin, didn't even show up. He did call and sort of set the groundwork before that meeting took place, but Putin has showed us over and over again where he stands. There's never been a ceasefire after the meeting at the Vatican, after Alaska, after this week. He has shown us repeatedly that bombing is mightier than the pen. You can't have peace talks without a key player involved in this. And it doesn't matter what you have on paper. It doesn't hold on the ground if you don't have security guarantees, if you don't talk about the harsh issues, the difficult topics of territory, which President Trump has said are still sticky and they haven't come to be resolved at this point.
So, Scott, why is Trump so seemingly naive about this? And also, why is he giving Putin so much credibility on the world stage that he wants what's best for Ukraine? Here's how Jim Garrity put it. This is like saying that Trump wanted to help Kamala Harris succeed in their last presidential election, or that the Death Star wanted Alderaan to succeed. For there to be peace, all Putin would have to do is issue the order, stop bombing, stop shooting, and peace would occur.
Yeah, I think the president is constantly talking to both of these guys and trying to find a way to get them to both get into a place where they don't have to go back home and say, we lost. I mean, that's the reality here. This only ends with a negotiated settlement. Both people have to go home and say, we won, or we got something out of this, or this didn't totally end on terms that are opposed to us. It's very tricky, and obviously it's a solution has evaded him for the last year. I don't have really any faith in Vladimir Putin. They've never engaged in any kind of ceasefire. He's never shown any interest really in ceasing hostilities for any period of time, and they've bombed Ukraine at times, when it felt like something was happening, and then Russia moves in and
just this
rattles Ukraine.
People
so
without power in Ukraine, like 2 days before your meeting with. That's not exactly a sign that you're interested in peace.
But I credit the president for trying. It may be the most difficult foreign policy issue he has to deal with. I think ultimately it will be dealt with, but it's not going to be dealt with. I mean, Putin's never going to go to Moscow and wave a white flag, and you don't want Zelensky to have to do that either, because obviously they're the aggrieved party here. So it's like trying to, put a camel through the eye of a needle.
It's definitely not being solved on day one.
Yeah, there's another big
Explain.
problem that's looming off the Eurasian continent, which is Taiwan, right? And so as we are dealing with this, the Chinese leadership is sitting in the capital, watching how we're behaving with one of our supposed allies, Ukraine, and if we reward territorial benefit Vladimir Putin's aggression, you will see a signal to the Chinese leadership that they can go into Taiwan and they are not going to necessarily be guaranteed that the United States is going to push them back. That is a major strategic problem for us. The way we are reorienting ourselves away from our commitments in the Pacific and in Europe and toward this sort of Monroe Doctrine, Western Hemisphere strongman stance you were talking about earlier, is a problem for us on the global scene.
Well, our national security strategy,
I would say it's not a problem in the context of, as Zelensky said today, Russia will win without the United States' involvement on Ukraine's side. And so the power dynamics are completely different. And I think that's why you see the president trying to bring Putin to the table and provide him some out to say that he won this. I don't think President Trump cares about what anyone, including myself at this table, says about the strategy that he believes is the right one. This whole idea of moral ambiguity in dealing with Putin, I totally get that. But we can also acknowledge that what we've been doing and what we previously did clearly didn't.
But what's the evidence that this is working? I mean, Trump had a whole party for Putin in Alaska. He literally rolled out a red carpet for him, went out in a press conference, said nice things about him, and then nothing?
I don't know what's happening behind the scenes, but I am saying that we've done things the more traditional way and just going out there and calling Putin an evil war criminal, who of course he is, but does not want to sit at the table and actually negotiate.
Here's the thing, I don't see any evidence. You can say that the previous thing didn't work. The current thing is also not working.
Not yet.
And the only thing that it's doing is emboldening Putin.
It's not.
I don't understand. What is the evidence that it's working?
It's not working until it does. I mean, that's the thing. You keep talking and you keep trying to get these guys.
Well, you could say that about the last effort.
It's not
because I think the other thing.
There is a fine line between strategic patience and ineffective policy. During a recent segment on CNN's The Newsnight with Abby Phillip, a heated debate surfaced regarding Donald Trump's approach to Vladimir Putin. Today, we're breaking down whether the current rhetoric matches the geopolitical reality. The discussion centered on a comment by contributor Scott Jennings, who noted that in diplomacy, strategies often don't work until they do. While Jennings argues for a long-game approach, critics suggest this narrative may be shielding a lack of leverage. The core of the disagreement lies in consistency. For instance, the administration often adopts a tough-on-crime or interventionist stance regarding unrest in Venezuela. Yet, when it comes to the Kremlin, that same aggressive posture often shifts toward a more conciliatory tone. This raises a vital question for voters and analysts alike. Is this a calculated peace-through-strength strategy, or is it a fundamental mishandling of a nuclear-armed adversary? Political pundits like Jennings and Jason Rantz play a specific role in our media landscape, often tasked with framing administration choices in the best possible light. However, objective analysis requires us to look past the talking points. Historical data on sanctions and NATO troop movements presents a complex picture, but the optics of personal rapport between leaders can often undermine official policy. If the goal is to project American strength, the perception of being outmaneuvered by a seasoned intelligence veteran like Putin is a significant hurdle for any administration to overcome. Host. Ultimately, foreign policy is judged by results, not just rhetoric. As the situation in Eastern Europe and South America continues to evolve, the effectiveness of this wait-and-see approach will be put to the ultimate test. But I want to hear from you. Do you believe a softer rhetorical approach is a valid diplomatic tool, or does it project weakness on the global stage? Let's get a civil discussion going in the comments below. If you found this analysis helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories shaping our world.
thing is that the very same people who for the last, 4 years have basically been saying, we need to just give up. We need the United States to wave the white flag and let Ukraine fall if it's going to fall. What they don't acknowledge is that the only reason that we're at a point where Putin even has to talk to some extent is because Ukraine has kept up the military pressure. The military pressure.
And how have they done that?
Has been
with our help.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
I mean,
your MAGA friends were opposed to that, Scott. They were opposed to the United States helping.
My friend is the president. He's not opposed to that.
Okay.
He's obviously kept.
He said he's pure MAGA, though.
He was. So was his vice president.
Are we not supporting Ukraine
all
militarily?
All of those people
of course we are.
Were opposed to it.
And we got NATO to do more. And
that is the only reason that he has a chance of even sitting down with Putin.
When you talk to people who are like in the thick of this, I asked someone who's an expert on this, what will really move the needle at this point? Like, we're trying something different here. President Trump's trying to get this to go through. It's not working. And they said sanctions on Russia could really, really affect the economy. I just don't see President Trump going anywhere near that or that happening. But I just don't know of any other pressure point. I was here the weekend before the hostage release, and I said, President Trump is going to make this happen. I know he's going to make this happen. There was fear from Netanyahu and fear on Hamas's side. The balance of power is different here. Putin does not think that Trump will push him back on this, and I think that is the big selling point on this.
Yes, and I do think that the kind of elephant in the room here is the United States completely losing, and the Biden administration is immensely complicit in this as well. Moral standing throughout the world due to our complicity in the genocide in Gaza, which has made it very difficult for us to speak to Ukrainian sovereignty, a bully like the Russian government invading their sovereign territory. We had a doctor on our show who spoke about how the death toll is in the hundreds of thousands at this point, because the numbers that are currently being reported are only the numbers of the death toll of people who have been counted in the hospital. There are hundreds of thousands of people presumed dead, suffocating to death, crushed to death under rubble because of United States bombs, and that's across this administration and Trump here, who did get this ceasefire that he touts all the time in October. But when you look at the actual numbers here, Israel has violated it hundreds of times since that period, multiple times a day, killed at least 400 Palestinians during that period. And this will go down as one of the worst crimes in the history of humanity that our government, the Biden administration and the Trump administration, are complicit in. So we have no leg to stand on.
We have to debate this.
We don't have time.
We actually don't.
We don't have time for the anti-Israel propaganda.
We don't have time
for the anti-Israel propaganda.
We don't have time to debate it.
Could you say Hamas was wrong at any point during this conversation?
That's fine.
Listen, we know that there's plenty of disagreement on that issue.
I never said that.
Well, we let it on spool for 2 minutes, but sure. I mean, honestly.
Okay, have a quick word.
I don't understand. Israel's our ally. Not a single word in your speech for the atrocities that were committed on October the 7th.
We should
not
cut
a single
off arms
word,
tomorrow.
Not a single word for the idea that Israel has every right to defend itself. Not a single word for the fact that Hamas right now is killing people inside of God, their own people. You seem to lay it all at the feet of Israel, a democratic ally in your own country, and you have no negative word for the terrorists who raped and murdered and kidnapped. Zero.
B'Tselem, Israeli human rights group, says they're committing genocide.
Guys,
you still don't.
We gotta go. Rita Ninan, thank you very much.
Emma Vigeland recently sparked a heated debate on CNN regarding US military aid to Israel, and her argument hits on a shift that Washington can no longer ignore. The core of the issue isn't just about policy, it's about a growing disconnect between the American public and the political establishment. While figures like Scott Jennings rely on traditional talking points, questioning the right to self-defense and demanding condemnations, many argue the conversation has moved far beyond those initial frameworks. The surprising shift in MAGA, perhaps the most interesting development, is the fracture within the MAGA movement. We are seeing a significant America First contingent breaking away from old-school conservative orthodoxy. They're asking a blunt question. Why are billions in weapons and aid flowing overseas while domestic crises go unaddressed? A bipartisan disconnect. Despite a majority of Americans across the political spectrum expressing concern over continued unconditional support, the institutional stance remains unchanged. Whether it's the Biden administration or the return of Trump, the undying support for Israel appears to be a rare point of bipartisan agreement in a divided DC, even as it becomes increasingly unpopular with the voters. Is Emma Vigeland right that the arms flow must stop? Or is the establishment correct that this alliance is non-negotiable? Join the conversation. The landscape is changing. Are you siding with the traditionalist view held by Jennings? Or do you believe Vigeland is reading the room of the American public more accurately? Drop a comment below. I want to hear your take on this shift. If you found this analysis helpful, make sure to like the video and subscribe to Insights Brief for more deep dives into the stories shaping our world. I'll see you in the next one.